Please welcome back Richard Linklater, Zoey Deutch, and Guillaume Marbeck. So my first question is for all three of you, because we all know how, as a filmmaker, how important this movement is, the New Wave. I think every filmmaker remembers seeing their first New Wave movie, when they discovered this era, sort of how they felt. And so I think probably all three of you have very different experiences of that discovery, and I wanted you to each tell us about your own relationship to the New Wave.
I guess I go first. God, that's such a big question. I wish I had a great story about the first time I saw Breathless and it changed my life and stuff, but I really didn't understand it, really, the first time I saw it. I liked it, but it wasn't until I saw it a couple more times, and I was just starting to think about cinema, so, and then I was starting to see all the other films too, so, you know, I was in my early 20s, so, but still a revelation and forever inspirational, you know. I think they're the kind of the archetypes for the modern, you know, independent cinema of personal expression and freedom and, you know, all those things we kind of take for granted now that a filmmaker could want to be. It was pretty radical back then, you know, so.
Yeah, I had only, honestly, I had only seen Breathless once until I started doing a real deep dive and doing all the research for this movie, which was so much fun to say, like, that was my job, to get to watch all these great films that both, you know, there was a lot of watching films that inspired, I wanted to watch the stuff that inspired Godard, and then I also, of course, wanted to watch stuff that was inspired by Godard. But, you know, when you ask that question, and Rick's not going to like this. I'm going to preface it by that, so close your ears, Rick. I had this, like, feeling of, you know, Rick's movies are more like my generation's New Wave, you know, Slacker and you know, your films are really did that for my generation, and they changed people's perspective on how you could make movies and what independent cinema was. And I think it's not the question you asked, but I do feel like why Rick is the perfect person to make this movie is because though him and Godard are so different in methodology, they couldn't be more different in personality. Also, they share the tether of, like, deep authenticity of making a movie because you want to make it, not because other people want you to make it. And I feel like the question you asked, I think more of his. It's a new wave. His stuff was a new wave.
I think the Nouvelle Vague gave you permission to kind of, it sort of, and I mean this in a good way, it sort of lowered the stakes of cinema, like the Hollywood and the big films of of that time, even the French industry of the 40s and 50s, it was really status quo, same old stories, same narrative structures, same everything. It was like, no, I just want to make a film like Truffaut could write so eloquently. I'll make a film about anything, you know, make a film about my childhood, make a film about a love affair, make a film about a trip, you know, just your life, the world around you was worthy of cinema. Yeah. You know, it's like the Beat Generation writers. It's like, yeah, just make a film about a road trip. Write a book about that. You know, it's like your lives, what was around us was worthy of art, was worthy of, you know, your own self-expression. So, I mean, I was getting into movies in the 80s, so that was a 20-plus-year-old notion, but it's still, that's why I mean it's so influential. To this day, I think it's, you know, it's just permission to do whatever's on your mind, maybe, that anything can be a film. So it didn't have to be some great genre piece or something fantastic. It can be anything.
Guillaume, I think this answer is going to be very different for you.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So, 10 years ago, I wanted to be a director. And so I ended up playing a director in a movie. So it's not far. But when I was in film school, I was a student, and obviously we had to watch French New Wave. It was a French school. And I had to watch Godard's movie, and what was funny about it, it's like it was a reference for all our teachers and most of students. And sometimes we would write a short movie, and it didn't work, and the teacher were saying like, you can't make this, and we were just saying, yeah, but Godard made Breathless, and they were speechless then. And it was our way to just like tell them like, fuck you, I'm gonna do my movie.
Very French.
Yeah, and they just couldn't say anything. So this is when I was discovering Godard. It was like our men to fight for our freedom, our creativity freedom back then.
So there is an obvious dissonance here between the jazz sort of improvisation that Godard was using to make his film and the methodology that you used to make this film, which is meticulous and down to the last detail, rehearsed, exacting to get this era.
Well,
and so I want you to tell me about the philosophy
well,
here.
Let's compare productions. Okay, they don't have a sound department, art department, casting department, hair, costume, nothing. They show up, and Godard's obsessed with creating out of the real world as he finds it. And, you know, a lighter weight camera, not a lot of lights. It looked like a student film, really, even maybe less. That production is just a few, not that many people. Okay, so 64 years later, we're there, and it's 180 degrees different. We have to recreate absolutely everything. It was really exhilarating, though. I think everybody came aboard trying to get it specific, and you know, every department, obviously, you know. So it was fun to be under the hood of another movie. You know, I always thought I maybe would do a film about the making of a film, but it was, instead of, I could have written something about like a film from my own experience, but it was so fun to do a history, to get into such a interesting moment, such a distinct moment. And my idea was it should be a film that was made then, you know, which doesn't usually work in cinema, you know, when you try to make something that looks like, but I thought they had such a distinct look, we could achieve that. The Nouvelle Vague to me was black and white, subtitled. They look like this. So I would tell everybody, it's like, this film was made in '59, not by Godard, but by, you know, maybe Jacques Rosier or, you know, one of the other new wave directors. And this was found in an archive recently or something, you know, like that was the kind of this is how we found it. It was made spontaneously, the spontaneity they're going for, it's all that. And just take away all the effort behind it. That's what the final film wanted to feel like. But yeah, I mean, they shot it in 20 days. We had 30, but we had sound, and we had to recreate everything, the streets of Paris, and but it was fun. Hotel rooms, we built certain things, but we were on a lot of the original locations.
Yeah.
You know, it was like putting a big puzzle together, like a visual puzzle. But it was really fun. It was really fun.
Philosophically, how did you approach, like, I'm going to create Godard's spontaneity with rehearsal? How did you square that sort of for yourself and your method, and saying, like, this is the right method for this movie, which is about sort of the opposite method?
Well, everything you make it's all a big trick, right? Aren't you? You know, Jacques Rivette always talked about movies aren't magic. You know, there's film going through a camera. This is all constructed, and he made pretty magical movies. But you know, if you think about it, magic isn't magic. It's an illusion. It's a construct. So this movie, we want to magically kind of make you feel like you're back in 1959 as this is happening. But obviously, it's all constructed. But that's our game. You know, I do want the viewer to feel like, kind of get lost in it, like this really is Seberg, and that's Belmondo, and this is where you are in time. So movies can transport you, I think, more than any other art form, I think, because it's so all-encompassing. But as far as methodologies, I mean, we kept it fresh, you know, just the same way I would do any movie, you know, just it never got stale, and everybody was so lively and happy to be there. And, you know, we were very reverent about what we were doing, but it was also, I was trying to remind that you're not playing an icon. You're not playing an icon. You're a writer making your first movie. You're not an icon. Belmondo, you're just these young people kind of winging it. You're excited about the opportunity. This film probably isn't any good. Just keeping the stakes low for what they were doing. There's a revolution going on, obviously, but maybe only one person knows it, so.
What of this philosophy sort of allowed you to take your character on?
Yeah, so as Richard explained to you, he told us that this is the method he wanted to use for this movie. And he gave us a manifesto in the beginning of the prep when we were rehearsing. And he said, like, okay, Breathless was like 1 or 2 takes by shot. We're not going to do that. We're going to do many shots, and we're going to rehearse a lot. We're going to work a lot. There's going to have no improv. You can improv during rehearsals while we are working on the text and things. If you have idea, you're welcome to share it. But because we are recreating time and reality, it was too complex to kind of like just like think something on the day. And also because like the language is so much different. I think it's the same for you guys in America. Like the words you say, the way you phrase things are completely different from when it was in the 60s. So we had to make sure those young people that live in 25 were exactly speaking the French New Wave language that was back then. So this is why we couldn't have improv, because if we said like, I don't know, yeah, or I don't,
Yeah,
it wouldn't sound right.
You can't improv in period language usually.
Well, I couldn't improv, period, because I didn't speak a word of French.
Yeah.
I learned French to do this movie,
Zoey
and
worked
I
so hard.
no, I mean no.
And
But
no
which
ADR.
which Seberg was new to French.
Yeah, she was new to French, she was, thank God. But that was the least amount of improv I could ever possibly do. I was just like constantly. It wasn't. Of course, it wasn't the speaking the French that was the scariest. It was the like listening. I was like, what did you just say? Because they speak so fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, did you just say that? I was trying so hard to listen.
And
bracing myself.
I had also to finish my sentences by the right word, because otherwise it was
I'd be like,
lost her. But sometimes I would do it and you would find it. So
you would fuck with me. You totally. Don't start with me, all right? He'd be like, in the spirit of Godard. I'd be like, no, not in the spirit of Godard. I'm working really hard here. Because I was also playing kind of 3 characters. I was playing, Jean Seberg. I was playing Patricia. I was playing Jean playing Patricia. And I had 3 different dialects. And I had very specific physicality for all of them. And I just like, it was the least free I could ever possibly feel, So that the constraints of that were really fun actually and challenging, and and it feels very different from me as a result. I watch it and I'm like, I don't know, I think in your style though, to kind of circle back to the your initial question, your style is this. It's always sort of consistent. It's the same. It's about the same amount of rehearsal time that you have shooting, which is awesome. And I think I guess there's a ton of freedom and play and improv, whatever that means to each experience. But in the rehearsal, it's just when you're making a small movie, you don't have the time and the luxury of like, well, let's play around for a couple hours and try a bunch of. It's like you don't have that time. So let's do that in rehearsal when we do have that time, and we did. So there was a lot of play and change and ideas and all that before.
Yeah, I always think by the time we're shooting, that's game time. Everything else has been practiced, but you still find little things.
Of course,
that's the fun part, isn't it? And everybody's funny. The cast is really, we got so lucky with the guy who plays Raoul Cotard, Matthew.
He's amazing.
He's mostly comedic actor.
So good.
But he could just a gesture, a look, you'd see it. It's funny.
Yeah, I think in the movie he improvised. I went to the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
This line was not in the script.
It wasn't.
It was
it
on the
was.
day.
I doubt it was improv.
Yeah,
I bet it was on his
I
script,
was
like, pitch this to Rick.
Yeah.
I got that.
And
I've got one more
it was
line.
funny, Zoe and I were the two Americans and the entire French crew, French cast, everything else. So they could have been, who knows what they were saying about us. But
Yeah, the subtitles are totally wrong. Huh?
yeah, we had our producer, Michelle Halberstadt, who knew Godard. There's actually a Godard short film before this movie. Their little logo for ARP, their company, Godard made that for them. He didn't like their logo, so he sent him a few logos. She was in his 80s film King Lear, which one of the least seen Godard films, but she has a little part in that.
And she did his last interview.
Yeah, so they were, all familiar. And she was a real workhorse. I know she just she did the translation for the script. She worked on the subtitles. She was there for you and on set. And
She was my French tutor.
yeah, she was kind of my eyes and ears because I never told the French this, but I'm making a subtitled movie, I like the way it sounds, French, it feels very Nouvelle Vague, It's like music to me.
So,
But I knew, even as we were composing shots, I'm like, okay, the subtitles will go right here, and it was important at work in French too. I mean, I knew what you guys were saying, but I was also like, okay, is that take? I'd look at Cammy, the script supervisor, or Michelle. It's like, oh yeah, that one wasn't very good. Okay, noted. But the final nuance of the language was really dependent on Michelle, Cammy, and ultimately Catherine, the French editor.
and because we were touching Breathless, for the French crew, it was like if we made it wrong, everybody would get out of job after this movie. So it was important for us.
No,
to make it
everybody. I went in afraid of France. Like years ago, I would have thought, okay, we'll show this movie. It's really about what the Nouvelle Vague looked like to the rest of the world, but France is going to hate this movie. Like they're not going to, so we'll never show it in France. We'll show it everywhere else. But then I got a little closer to it, and I found out how much it meant to everybody. And they really liked what, Holly and Vince and I, what we were trying to do with the script. And it was serious, we got our quotes right. Is a specific, trying to be historically accurate homage to that time. And people came aboard. We had this first assistant director, Hubert, who was like the MVP of everything. He cared so much. Oh, that was actually a different car. That was, just everything was.
Let me call this old lady that knew Godard.
Yeah, we were.
So he would call somebody who knew Godard and ask
He would
them.
call everyone.
We got incredible access. Like the camera you see in this movie that is shooting the movie is the camera that shot Breathless. When Raoul Cotard passed away, he left it in an archive, all his stuff to an archive, and we went there and like, hey, is that Camaflex here? Yeah, does it still work? Yeah. It's like, can we use it? And they're like, yeah, sure. So it was like that. Just miracles happened every day on this movie.
My
That's how
next
it felt. They were
question
so
kind of-
like the film gods were with us or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is something very, very magical, pardon me, about this film that I feel like the spirits of these great filmmakers are circling it, and most of them are dead now. But it
Every
feels
single
like
person in this movie
yeah.
is no longer with us.
And so
with
I'm just wondering
one
if the
exception.
spirits were whispering, and if they were, what were they saying? Pardon me
man.
for
I
being
was-
so
Story.
woo.
Well, let me first say, this film, we have a great ghost story to tell. But
I was gonna say that one too. I have
this
one.
whole movie, somewhere along the way, at the end of the first week, we shot that scene in Cahiers du Cinema where they're there to hear Rossellini talk, but everybody's there. Demi and Varda and so many of the other filmmakers, all these writers, kind of obscure characters, but they're all in this one room, and it was really emotional. Hubert would introduce them as they walked in. Here's Jacques Demy and Agnes Varda, and the whole crew would get quiet because the extras looked all alike. And we're like, there they are. And people were just kind of tearing up. It's like, God, they're
You
all
were
here.
too.
I
came to
know. I
would.
was.
No, he's saying people. I would come to visit the set when I wasn't shooting because that's what Jean did, and I came to visit that day, and I was so. I thought it was so beautiful. I looked at Rick, and you totally were tearing up.
I admit
and
it.
I admit it. And I had this feeling like maybe you made this movie, or you made this movie so you could meet your heroes, and you were meeting them, and they were real, and you were saying thank you to them. And I think that's why the movie really works, because it's you just like getting to meet the people that inspired you.
But what they were whispering in our ear, it was a seance, and they were all back together. And it was a great moment in their life, 59. They were really happy, is what I'm here to report. They were happy to be back together. What do you think?
And also, fun fact, during this scene of Cahiers du Cinéma, the real Cahiers du Cinéma of nowadays, they were in the next room watching the screen happening.
Yeah, they all came and visited that day. Yeah, it's like they've had 4 offices since that one back then, but they were like, wow, because they have all those. This movie was so well documented. We had so much documentation. There were all the Castier photos. We had camera reports. I could tell you what lens they had up for everything. I could tell you how many takes they did. We knew so much about the movie.
And yet the actors had no script. There's so much information now, but when they were making it,
it's
zero.
really well archived. We were going off. We had so much info that we were playing with. But do you want to tell the rainy day?
You tell it.
Okay.
This is the most amazing story about
Well, I don't want to
girls.
play it out too much.
We're screwed now.
Yeah, we can't.
I'm overselling it right now.
No, we made this film in the spring, kind of coming out of winter. It's pretty cold, rainy winter. Well, we got lucky on the weather because we're trying to make it. They shot it in August, September, late summer. So we needed sun, and we got very lucky with the weather. But there was this one day we were on the street where Belmondo gets shot, the final scene. And it was pouring rain all morning. We had a lot to do that day. We were shooting there 2 days, and this was the second day, was it? And it was just pouring rain. We weren't going to make the day. We're all at lunch together. And Zoey, you say, let's go visit Jean, because she's buried. Seberg is buried. The very end of the movie where she does that, she's buried about, 200 meters from there?
Yeah, Montparnasse Cemetery.
Montparnasse Cemetery is just across the street and down a little bit. And we had been there before, but
this time I was dressed up like her.
Yeah. So Jean was walking up, and we all got our little umbrellas and walked over there at lunch because we had time to kill because we couldn't shoot. And no kidding, as we approached the grave, in costume from her most famous scene, here is approaches the grave, and it just quits raining. And then Zoey got ahead of us, and then she went up to the grave, and as she got there, the sun came out. And it was sunny the rest of the afternoon, and we shot. I'm just saying, I don't even believe in ghosts or any of that, but I'm saying that's what happened. And thank you, Jean. We made our day, and it was that kind of movie. Do you want to? You made me tell the story. Do you have anything to add?
I do. You're way better at telling it. I thought that I do believe in ghosts and that kind of thing, and I was very moved by it. And
I've always been skeptical, but maybe not anymore. Okay, I believe in it.
I do want to ask a little more about Jean, because I think it's such a profound performance that you gave, because you're performing so much that's below the surface that sort of we know about Jean, but also I think we forget that it's the late 50s. Her wearing pants is like a total revolution. And so I'm just curious, what were the things that you were thinking about that she was going through that are sort of almost forgotten of how far we've come, per se, of where she was and the sort of paternalism that she faced to be an artist. And I know that we often talk about gender with the French New Wave because there were these really important women that you sort of represent with Suzanne Schiffman, and who's like on both sides. She's like, the guys are, she says, you never stand up for me, but she's also in the group, so she's sort of on both sides. But Jean is, very particularly sort of oppressed by her career with Preminger, and so you're carrying so much to this role. So I'm just curious about how you thought about playing a woman of that time, and particularly her.
Rick was very helpful in reminding us that we're doing interpretations, not impressions, and also that we're it's a very particular moment in time. Let's not read ahead, like he mentioned earlier. But right, context. She had made 2 films St. Joan, which there's an amazing poster of out there. I was like floored by.
Saul Bass.
Crazy. And Bonjour Tristesse, both Otto Preminger movies. He traumatized her. He was abusive. He was awful. Also, she was destroyed by the American press for St. Joan, and physically harmed in the making of that movie. She was burned.
Literally burned at the stake.
Burned at the stake, and he used that take in the movie. And she's this 18-year-old girl plucked from obscurity out of Marshalltown, Iowa. She had no foundation, no support, no nothing. And she's coming to France, and she's just like praying, hoping for a new, different experience, a new beginning. And she just wants to do good. She just wants this one to work out, and he couldn't be more different. It's the complete opposite of everything that she knows in Otto's very rigid, very intense style. And now he's saying, no script and just be, and it's just like maddening for her. Also making a movie in a language that she's just learning, really scary. All of that is very helpful in informing. I play the skeptic, right? I'm understandably skeptical of what's going on.
It's completely normal for an actor to ask, well, tell me more about my character. Who am I playing? Is there a script? These are very normal questions that anyone would ask.
I'm starting to wonder, did you cast me because that's what I do with you? I'm like, Rick, wait, but what would be, when I was 19, I was like, okay, one more question, Rick. You're like, no.
But we love Jean.
No, and we do. We love her, and it was very special to be able to portray her at this moment of her life. I feel very protective of her. I love her very much.
She's so strong.
Such an amazing human and actress, and it was I feel very lucky that I got to show this moment and this side of her.
It's kind of interesting in the movie, like she's sort of a commodity. Her husband's like, well, they sold her contract. She's under contract. Their money, you can't afford her. She's sort of being, here she is, a young woman, but she's, a commodity.
Yeah. Yes, I don't need to go further, but.
Well, I want to give the audience a chance, and remember, I'm going to repeat your questions so they can hear us in theater too. But I'm sure there are questions out there. So if you have one, raise your hand high. And this is the first one that I saw.
I was just wondering, directing this movie, you're putting yourself in the mindset of Godard making his first movie. If you kind of summoned the version of yourself that made Slacker, and what the differences are between 29-year-old Godard and 29-year-old Linklater.
Okay. Did you, in making this movie about somebody making their first movie, did you summon yourself of that time? And what is the difference between the young Godard making his first movie and the young Richard Linklater?
You can't help but personalize the whole experience. So it was really fun to go back. I mean, I approached this kind of like I was saying, this is a film made in '59. The cinema language of the time, we had to blot out all technical innovation, everything, the way movies are shot. I mean, every shot in this movie should fit in a movie of, let's say, 59 to 62, the way those films looked. So we're kind of forgetting film history. I was forgetting my own history. I was going back and making my first film again. So that was pretty exhilarating, because I remember at that time, it's exhilarating to make your first film, but it's also fraught. You're on a volatile, it could all fall apart. You don't know what you don't, there's a lot of anxiety with it. So here, I think I was able to kind of go back in my own way to beginner's mind, but I actually, in reserve, I had kind of a bedrock of decades of filmmaking experience. So there was a confidence there, like, oh, this will work. We could try crazy things you might do in your first film. But then you'd just be nervous about it, like, oh, what if this whole thing doesn't work? I could do it, and it's going to work. So it was kind of a wonderful headspace to try to be in the whole time. So that's, I think, the connection. And I told people, yeah, I'm 28, 29 again, making this movie. So it was fun. It was just, I don't know, it was very. It was a great, not only a kind of a cinematic dream, but in a very youthful mindset too. So it was fun.
Yes, right here.
How much did you rely on visual effects for the film? I was trying to figure out some of that with
Can you talk about visual effects, particularly when it comes to
What visual effects?
recreating Paris of that period?
Not one visual. They didn't have visual effects in 1959, man. We didn't do any. No, this film has so many visual effects. But hopefully you don't notice. You know, that's really not the plan. They're not trying to. It's always the usual things, but deep backgrounds. I mean, the set, we had our own cars, we had our own extras, we had, you know, everything you can control in the immediate foreground, but inevitably the backgrounds. And
Some of the cobblestone streets.
And leaves on trees, also.
yeah, there's that. And there, you know, the
And we weren't really there.
Champagne premiere.
It was tennis balls, but
AI just
us,
did all that.
so.
But I think the biggest single pain in the ass shot, visual effects, and we spent 6 months on visual effects. It was just approving things. It's such a drag. But they had asphalted over these famous cobblestone streets, the one Belmondo dies on, Campaign Premiere. It's a famous street in the movie, but you know, you get there and it's just all asphalt. It's like, it's the wrong street. But visual effects, even in the last 3 years, have matured. It's so quick, and they've gotten I couldn't have even made this film 10 years ago, I think, in the same way. Remember Benjamin, the visual effects guy, said, no, he's like, he would look at it and go, yeah, we can do that. You know, so everything is like, can we get rid of those motorcycles? Well, yeah, we can do that. So that happened like 300 times on the movie every day. That happened about 10 times. It's like, Benjamin, we got it. No, we'll do that. I'm like, God, I hope this guy's good. I hope that company's good. And they were. I was you're kind of dependent. You're vulnerable. But I was very happy with all the little, and we used some archival footage. It was funny to show this film at Cannes, and people were like, wait, how did you create all that? And it's like, that's images. Black and white's pretty forgiving, but you know, those are images from either other movies or archival stuff, newsreel. I used probably 7 or 8 shots in the movie that you could just kind of integrate with our footage. So it was like a fun little visual puzzle to put together.
I think we have time for 2 more. We have 2 more hands. In the back, yes.
I'm just curious. There's a really small line in there about when they're talking about the budget for the film, and they say, "Oh, with subsidies." You know, they're talking about the French. You know, like this wouldn't have been made without art subsidy. That's so much of what AFS itself is doing. But what do you see as the future of that here, as it all sort of goes away? And did you put that in there as a nod to that?
Okay, so they talk in the movie about how Godard is making it with the money from a subsidy, which I forget the exact history of that. But the question is about sort of what is the future of film finance.
We can all learn something from countries like France. I mean, this film was entirely 100% financed out of France with all the CNC financing. They really know how to maintain their own film industry. I really admire it. You walk down the streets in Paris, and most of the films showing are French films. You know, it's not just the latest, dumbest films from Hollywood. They're often there, but for every film from another country, they pluck €1 out and goes into developing French movies, and they have this self-sustaining. If your budget's low enough, you can kind of get these films made. They're all a little frustrated. Even the Nouvelle Vague, they all kind of hated the CNC because you have to go up before them. I had to sit in front of this huge conference table. It must have been 15 people on each side just kind of staring at you like, why do you want to make this film? And, you know, they have your script, they have your thing, and they give money or they don't. So we got lucky to have their support. But they're very good culturally and economically. So, but these European countries and cities, arts are important. They really see themselves as a city of that, and they walk it like they talk it. So, you know, a city like Paris or Vienna or Berlin, that one city spends more on the arts than our entire country. I'm not kidding. And so, you know, you have to look at it not only as an economic thing, but a cultural thing too. And they do both, you know, it's a big industry. So we could use a little of that, you know, we're always, but you know, Texas, we have our incentive program. We've built that up over the years, and it comes and goes, but it's here back now. So, it's just something you gotta put the pressure on the politicians, let everybody know what's important, you know. So that's my pitch. You know, there's always one politician like, we should zero out all the arts and give that money to something. You know, you got to kind of call them and threaten them or whatever. So.
Okay, we're going to take one more.
And don't worry, we still have dumb French movies.
I was gonna say.
They got their own dumb French
Lots of
movies.
You'll
dumb.
keep your dumb American movies too.
Yeah,
Don't
they
worry.
have these indecipherable French movies, but no, French. They invented the cinephile. I love French film culture, but they're up against it. A lot of those theaters have closed. It's the same thing. They've kind of fought with Netflix over the years, a little bit too. But so.
Yep, go ahead. Yep, that's you.
I had a question for Zoey. So you recently worked on a film directed by Clint Eastwood, who's known for his sort of fast, loose, two-take Clint style. And Godard had a similar sort of fast and loose style. I was curious if there was anything from your experience that you drew on playing somebody who's also being directed by somebody who's pretty fast and loose.
So the question is about, you've worked with Clint Eastwood, and a wonderful performance. He works
Juror
very
number
quickly,
2.
takes 1 or 2 takes at most, kind of similar to Godard. Did you bring, what was your experience of thinking, were you thinking about Clint, or were you comparing these two experiences of that fast, loose style?
So the lore, right, that I was aware of with Clint, the 1 or 2 takes, the no action, the no cut, the short days, they are true, but the essence of them that I kind of came to understand was that it's all about cultivating a very peaceful, calm environment. It's about how do we like protect the space for the actors as best that we can, which I don't feel was similar to Godard in any way. In fact, I feel, if anything, it's more similar to Rick in that, and there's sort of like I'm just examining as somebody who would like to have a long-lasting creative life and have you know, been on my own journey with how do I do this job and not attach myself to anxiety or stress or heightened energies. And I think working with him and working with Rick, I go, well, look at them and their unbelievable, long, sustaining, beautiful, full careers. I have to imagine that it has something to do with that, with prioritizing peace in the workplace. Like I'm sure a lot of you know the Clint no action, no cut is when he was an actor in a lot of Westerns, and the director would call action. It would spook the horses. And he would say, why are we doing that to actors? They're humans, they're animals. You're yelling at them to perform, feel. What does that do to a human being's nervous system? That's the opposite of connection. So I find that to be very similar to the way Rick works. It's calm. It's peaceful. So
I think that's why so many actors go on to be very good directors. There's so many that's a good background, because you're thinking like, well, what got the best out of me? You know, sort of like players, you know, coaches were almost always players, and they were like, what brought the best out of me as a player? You know, and so Eastwood, you know, Robert Redford, you know, there's so many directors who have a background, Sidney Pollack, in acting. And I think that, yeah.
But when I asked you about that, I said, I don't understand. You just made 2 movies in 1 year. You know, most directors, they make 1 and then they go to like an insane asylum for 10 years. You know, what is the secret? That's coming, that's next. Like, what's the secret? I'm your friend. I've worked with you. I should be able to answer this. And you still won't answer it, but I think one of the things he said that I identified is maybe you don't agree with this, but you said, you know, I made 1 movie at the very one of the first movies you made, or one of the first movies you made. It was there was a lot going on, and it was very intense, and it was not the way you wanted to do it, so you never did it again. And I was like, so you learned your lesson right away? I make the same mistake over and over. And I was like,
well,
that's not.
Directors can control that to some, you know, degree. Yeah. You really do set a tone, and Yeah, it was actually my third film, but it was like a studio film, and there was just a lot of extra.
I didn't want to out. I didn't know if you wanted to
Yeah,
say which
no,
one it
I'm
was. I was trying to be
public with
ambiguous, but
My Dazed and Confused experience, studio producer, I was like, okay, I don't need that guy. I don't need that guy. You know how to make it. So from then on, I kind of figured out what worked for me anyway. So.
Can I end it on? I love the scene in the movie where, or it's in the Cahiers du Cinema office, you're stealing the money from the drawer to go to Cannes to go see Truffaut's movie. Romer and Rivette are dutifully typing away on the typewriters. And it's that impulse that's sort of like, this is part of that impulse to make that first movie. And I just wanted for you to talk about that connection between cinephilia and the drive to make something.
To be a thief, to
be
a well, that is a lesson for first-time directors. Yeah, you do what you have to do, and it's really gray market stuff, you know. Yeah, so Godard's a notorious thief, but he was very open about it though too. He didn't see it, right? You have a theory there. He was very open. Like if you ever asked him, can we use a clip of a Godard? Yeah. He said yes to everything apparently, according to Michelle. Like people, he passed away 3 years ago, but would he have approved this movie? She goes, oh yeah, he would have. Of course, he would have said sure. He said yes to everything. Because I think he had taken so much that he was kind of always giving back too. He saw it as a cycle. But what was your take on that?
Yeah. He likes money. He likes a contract. If you contract him for work, he will do it, but for money, of course. But then when the work is done, it's overdue, like it's past. It's like the label on your food, like when it's expired. Yeah. And so he felt like I'm gonna be the open source of cinema. Like you can. Steal from me whatever you want and make it your own. It's a new stone for building stuff. And it's like TikToks and Instagrams, like it's only remixes of music, remixes of like ideas of other people. Who is gonna claim like this dance is mine and then you have to give me money because you made the dance and made millions of views? Like,
yeah, one of my favorite lines, one of my favorite Godard quotes in the movie is it's not where I take things from, it's where I take things to, and I think he saw the whole world as just material for his mix, and his unique, one-of-a-kind cinematic brain. That's what I've always appreciated about him. He's unlike anybody else, kind of created his own language, kind of his own sources, his own view of the world, just his own, whatever neurological, difference he has with most people. He put it in his art in such a unique way. So very inspiring always, but unimitatable. You can't. No one can really imitate Godard effectively. He blazed a trail but left no real ancestors other than like the spirit. When people try to make Godard films, they just almost never work. Like he can't really name any. But for someone so influential, I think it's more on a spiritual, it's like get in touch with your own cinematic brain and do, follow those impulses, but you can't really imitate him. That's my takeaway.
On that note, let's pay homage to Godard. Everyone, get your sunglasses on.
The moment we've been waiting for.
And 1, 2, 3. Can we thank our guests for coming to see, and thank you, Guillaume, Zoey, Rick. Thank you all for being here and joining us tonight. So special. Nouvelle Vague.